We'll start to dive into some of this baseball that we could get a better handle on with Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, Major League Baseball insider here, and he joins us now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN with the Mariners in town against the Phillies, and that's kind of where I wanted to start things off here because the Mariners are here. We got this 2-game set, and Carlos Ruiz is back, and it's funny because one of the things we talked about yesterday on our show, Seth, was kind of the impact Ruiz had on the 08 Phillies in that group. He was the longest guy here. He was the last one to leave, and he has the billboard up there this week as he's coming back into town. He kind of swept under the rug that he's in Seattle, but he'll be here for 2 with this Mariners team that I guess has been a little disappointing.
Yeah, they have been. Look, Carlos Ruiz is one of your guys. I've always enjoyed dealing with him. 2008 is a great time for the Phillies, and the only thing I always say is 2011 was a better team, and I bet you Carlos Ruiz would agree. The thing about what you get when you have legacy people like that is, if that's enough of a reason to bring somebody out to the ballpark, I don't think that's a bad thing. That doesn't make me like interleague play, though. I could wax poetic about how much I hate the fact that the Mariners are playing the Phillies. It's so stupid. And unfortunately, because the Astros moved to the American League, there has to be an interleague game every night, and you get these cockamamie matchups that really don't have a lot of weight. And that's the problem with this. If Carlos Ruiz isn't there, what about the Mariners and Phillies is descript? Like, what is one thing to market? Nothing.
You're right about that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan as well, but especially when you have an AL West team and a National League East team, there's just nothing there. But I guess this is nice for the Phillies fans to get a chance to see Carlos Ruiz, who, as you mentioned, probably a better team in 2011. But it's funny how one of the questions we were discussing yesterday is who the best catcher is in Phillies history. And the fact that Ruiz's name even gets mentioned, I feel, shows how popular he was because, quite frankly, statistically speaking, he shouldn't be in the conversation.
Well, you talk about what his value was. I always thought he was one of the top 3 defensive catchers in his prime. And I remember having a conversation with Ryan Madsen. We had this great experiment. It was Ryan Madsen's idea. What if we could change the rules, just for the sake of this argument, and you could take the DH, instead of having the DH for the pitcher, you'd have it for the catcher. This is right after Buster Posey got hurt, remember, in 2011?
Yep.
And so Ryan Madsen had the idea, and we made a segment about it. And the idea is, if your catcher now suddenly couldn't hit, would Carlos Ruiz be a hitter or a catcher? And he would be a catcher because he's that valuable. No matter what he did offensively, if you think about it, Yadier Molina would be a catcher. Buster Posey would have been a hitter. Matt Wieters would have been a hitter. Joe Mauer would have been a hitter. You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting argument because what makes the guy most valuable? And I've often said that when I'm building a team, I would rather have a catcher that I want to be on the defensive side than the offensive side. If a catcher can hit, it's a bonus.
I really like that game. That's a good one. Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, Major League Baseball insider here. Speaking of the 2008 Phillies, we saw Ryan Howard get released. Anything there? Anybody going to pick him back up, or is that it sadly for Howard? It was real sad to kind of see him wear that Braves uniform and kind of hanging around, but is that the end for Ryan Howard?
Well, I mean, he couldn't make the Braves roster. Look, I'm of the belief I never tell an athlete to hang it up. Right. I don't think it's our place in the media. I always think anytime a talk show host or an analyst, comes on and says that guy should retire, I think they're inappropriate. Unless they played the game, they're not qualified to make that claim. My attitude has always been Ryan Howard. He was going to get an opportunity to show that he could do something. He had such a long swing and struck out too many times, and we should talk about strikeouts because I don't know if you saw the Sunday night game. But this idea that we're talking about, we're talking about a scenario where, Ryan Howard can't turn on anything, even dead red, it's just the writing's on the wall. As far as that's concerned, people talk about, do we need to fix the extra innings? Trust me, extra innings was not the problem Sunday night in the 18-inning game between the Cubs and the Yankees. The problem was that was an MLB record 48 strikeouts. 6 hours of watching guys walk up and down from the bench to the plate is boring. And I could have watched an entire season on Netflix during that game.
No, I didn't see the Sunday night game. I saw the Monday morning game. I watched. I got it in like from the 11th inning on. I caught a little bit of that. But I also heard something that you don't hear in baseball often. They had to get new ball. They ran out of baseballs. How does that happen in a game with 48 strikeouts? If they had to get new baseballs, like what the heck was that?
Throwing many out. Well, curveballs in the dirt, they'll throw right out.
Oh my God!
Look, 18 innings is 18 innings. My issue is if there's balls being hit in play, there's a flow to that. When it's just strikeouts, it's boring. And as somebody who covers this sport for a job, it is becoming more and more of a job. I just think that this sport has a strikeout epidemic. People like to brag about strikeout totals. I would rather have my guy not strike out as a hitter than have a guy on my team lead the league in strikeouts.
That's a topic for another conversation with Seth Everett here. I want to get into Matt Harvey. What's going to happen with him? They said he's going to be back Friday, but are we seeing the end of the Harvey era in New York?
Well, he's coming back today, and you know what? His press conference is going to be soon. That should be a hoot. This is kind of what we talked about recently. I mean, that franchise is rudderless, and I had a lot of issues when I worked there, and this is not a personal thing, but to be honest with you, I'm embarrassed by some of the stuff that goes on within that organization, and this is part of it. You have a culture where the players think that they can do anything, and it's rudderless. There's a difference between being a player's manager and literally just being a pushover. And this is going to be a reflection of Terry Collins. It's a reflection of Sandy Alderson. And, Matt Harvey, that relationship cannot be saved. But frankly, he hasn't been a good enough pitcher recently to warrant all this attention. And, if he thinks he's getting this big contract, remember they were talking about him and Steven Strasburg, those two Scott Boras clients? I mean, who's signing Matt Harvey right now? And he's coming off two major surgeries, one of which you've heard of, Tommy John surgery. The other one is this thoracic syndrome. You've never heard of that. No, guys usually don't come back from that. So I don't know. He's damaged goods on top of that, and he's an idiot on, double.
Seth Everett, you can listen to him on NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network at NBCSportsRadio.com. And, of course, we talk baseball on Tuesdays with Seth here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
You got it, man.